Catherine, how did you find Carnivore?
It was actually a very long and winding road that started about 20 years ago. I was a single mom, a mailman male lady, I guess, male person in Texas. So I was out in the sun probably 5 or 6 hours a day. We would go into the office, case our mail, and then we were on the street. And I started after I had been doing that for about 4 years, and I started getting some red rashes. I don't know if you're familiar with their trucks, but our right arm is always out putting mail. So your right arm and your right leg get very much sun, and the left side not so much. So I started getting a rash on my right arm and my right leg, and it looked like ringworm. And I went to the doctor about it, and they said it wasn't ringworm. I didn't have any other symptoms of that, but they weren't quite sure what it was. So they wanted me to take steroid creams and all sorts of things. And I didn't want to do that. I've never been one to take prescriptions. I always preferred the natural route, either fixing it through diet, fixing it through supplements, any type of lifestyle modification I was up for, but prescriptions, not so much. So eventually I was told by 3 different dermatologists that I did have discoid lupus. And that discoid describes the shape of the rash I was seeing, but I still didn't want to go on any medications. So I went to see my nurse practitioner. Her and I got along really well because she respected my desire to, only in the rarest of occasions, take a prescription. So she was helping me look at my gut health first. So we did all of the testing for sensitivities to foods, and she did stool specimens that tested for different things. Well, the day that my results came in, I was sitting in her office, and it was page after page after page of food sensitivities. And I also had H. pylori in my gut, and I had an overgrowth of candida. And I was surprised by those things because I had heard if you had that, you would have a white tongue or different symptoms. I didn't have any symptoms of that, so I was pretty surprised. And she put me on a lot of different supplements. We started there. And when I was talking to her, I was actually visibly upset. I was crying in her office because I said, what am I supposed to eat? Because I'm allergic to all of these things. I mean, coffee, dairy, eggs, tuna, certain types of fish. I had sensitivities to all of it. So she sent me to a dietitian, and I met with the dietitian. I knew nothing about carnivore or bad carbs or any of this yet. So she suggested that I start with oatmeal and blueberries for breakfast, salads with some protein for lunch, sourdough bread, whole grains, whole wheat pastas, all of that kind of thing. So I did that for a long time, and we continued to work on my gut health with these supplements. My rash didn't budge, and my rash was kind of the indicator to me that something wasn't right. I wasn't doing it for cosmetic reasons. I wasn't doing it for weight loss. It's not that I didn't have any weight to lose, because I did. At my highest, I was 220 pounds. But that,
And sorry, how tall are you?
5'6".
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when we went through all of this, and I kept expressing a concern that my rash wasn't getting any better, really, I was at the end of the line with what she could do for me. She wasn't a dermatologist. She wasn't a specialist. And she ended up leaving the practice where I was going. And the other doctors in the practice were not okay with me only wanting supplements. So I did go to several dermatologists. They did confirm the diagnosis, but again, they wanted me to go on steroids and I didn't want to. So I actually went vegan first, trying to be healthy, and became a member of PETA, if you can imagine, which stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. So I was fully into this veganism. I was watching the videos, forks over knives, those types of things. And in some of the videos I was watching, they would talk about how if you eat meat, it takes so long to digest. It sits in your colon, it ferments, it causes cancer, all types of scary things. So I stayed dedicated to being vegan for a solid year. And the things that stick out to me the most were I was always hungry and I was always meal prepping. So I spent Sundays about 6 hours chopping vegetables and making all the stuff that I would need for my vegan meals for the next week. And it was awful. And my rash didn't budge. I mean, not at all, not even a little bit. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll become vegetarian and kind of work some eggs in there or maybe some fish. So I did that. That helped a little bit with satiety, but again, what I was looking for was health. And my rashes were telling me my health was still an issue. So after being vegetarian for a while, I was still researching, different things. And a lot of autoimmune diets do have a lot of things like green smoothies and vegetables and this kind of thing in there. So I did all that for quite some time. And it wasn't until probably 3 or 4 years ago that I came across keto. And I thought, okay, I could see me being keto, mostly meats and vegetables. And it was a mind thing for me for a while, though, because of how I felt about factory farming and animals and all that kind of thing. But I did give into it because, again, I'm pursuing health. So I was keto for a while. I did have some success on keto. I lost some weight, kind of started breaking the sugar addiction issues, but it wasn't enough. I mean, my rash still looked exactly the same. So I knew that there was still something I was doing that was not healing me, that was holding me back. I still felt, if I didn't get a good night's sleep, I felt like I had the flu. If I worked a long day, which I did work a lot back then, and it would always make me feel like I had the flu. I'd spend weekends in bed, but that was the autoimmune stuff coming up. So I kept researching while I was on keto and kind of progressing in the whole diet information, and did find carnivore. I was carnivore, but not serious carnivore. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Every time it got hard, which if you're coming from a place of standard American diet, switching to carnivore is not easy. I mean, I'm 62 now. I was probably 58, 59 during this. So I had a lot of decades of not eating carnivore, not eating healthy. I used to always work out a lot, but I never watched what I ate. I ate whatever I wanted. If I wanted cake for breakfast, I had cake for breakfast. So my system needed a lot of help. So every time I would do carnivore, I would get to that point where it was really hard and I felt really crummy and, you can't be away from a bathroom very long and the headaches, and I would never push through that. I would quit. I would have a bowl of rice or something like that. Not necessarily something that I had a food sensitivity to, but it was still carbohydrates. And that would always make me feel better, of course, because if you're an addict and you partake of whatever that is, you're going to feel better short term. So it would make me feel better. So I got to thinking I was doing something wrong with carnivore because I felt so terrible. So this went back and forth for probably a year and a half, where I was kind of keto, I was kind of carnivore, but I had one foot out the door, Well, I decided this January that I was tired of not being able to wear a pair of shorts. I mean, I was in Texas. I'm not in Texas anymore, but we have very hot summers there, and I was in pants all summer. So this past January, last month, being National Carnivore Month, I decided to go lion diet. I have tried that one other time, and I only made it 3 weeks. This time I was determined to not stop until I made a decision about my rash, whether it was getting better or whether I did it for several months and didn't see any improvement. So that's also why I started my channel that month, being National Carnivore Month. I thought that'd be a great place to start. So I've been on lion diet since January 2nd. I took pictures. Well, my daughter took pictures of the backs of my legs at the end of January. They were very minimally starting to fade. So I stayed on it because that gave me some hope. And this month, since I was going to start thinking about what to say in my 60-day checkup, she took more pictures, which she'll take more on the 28th just to get an accurate one. But I still saw my spots fading even more. So that's kind of giving me the courage to stay on lion diet, not just carnivore, because I am starting to see slight improvements. But I mean, this is after Atkins and Weight Watchers and protein shakes and being vegan and all of it and going through carnivore. It was tough. It was tough. It was 2 solid months of me thinking, I've got to be doing something wrong, but I was determined to push through it or figure out that it just wasn't for me. So luckily this time I did push through it, and it did motivate me to want to clean things up even more, because I still felt like even on carnivore, I must be eating something that's causing me inflammation because the rash is still there. And that's what I'm looking at as my health marker. I can get great blood work and that type of thing, but my rash is what's telling me things are off. And I do feel so different now that I know what it feels like to have that start calming down, because it is starting to fade. I wouldn't put a pair of shorts on in public yet, but I'm getting pretty close to being able to do that, which tells me that the inflammation is all but gone. And it's very exciting. It gives me a lot of hope. It's not easy, but it really is simple. I mean, I know a lot of people coming onto carnivore, have a lot of questions like, well, what do I eat? And how much protein and how much fat? And when do I do this? And do I need electrolytes? And I don't think in the very beginning it needs to be that complicated. If you can just stick to animal products, to me, that's enough in the beginning. And that kind of tells you where to go, what you need to tweak. Once you get familiar with how you feel on the diet, some things that you like, Because when I was carnivore, I would eat pork and crispy chicken thighs and, along with the chuck roast and beef brisket, I would eat all of that. I was eating a little bit of dairy, not a lot of dairy, more like a condiment, but I would have dairy sometimes. I would have protein shakes sometimes, but that wasn't enough for me. Now, I do feel like years ago I was told that autoimmune can stem from poor gut health. Now, I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it does for everybody, but it would appear that the healthier my gut becomes by not eating carbs and sugars, the fewer autoimmune symptoms I'm having. And that for me is worth eating the same thing every day if I have to, because I know it won't be forever. I know that I am healing. I can see it, but I've been able to feel it too. And I'd really feel like cleaning up my gut health, because it did appear that I had leaky gut, all of those things, H. pylori, the candida, all of it. And I really believe that that's what led to the autoimmune. Because when you have leaky gut, you've got things passing through into your bloodstream that shouldn't be in your bloodstream. And your body says, wait, we've got a foreigner, attack. And that's probably where my rashes were coming from. Now, that's all theory. I've talked to the doctor about it too. And it is theory at this point in my case. But it's educated theory and it's realistic theory. And I really believe that staying on this way of eating, and I say way of eating, but it's really more than just a way of eating. I feel like it's an entire lifestyle, because I was thinking about what does carnivore give to me that I did not have before carnivore? And it might sound oversimplified, but it really gives me peace. I don't have the up and down sugar crashes. I used to think that I must be hypoglycemic because I couldn't go more than a couple of hours without eating. Well, now I know a lot better. It was the carbs and the sugar and up and down all day. It affected me mentally. I was on antidepressants for 20 years. I was on blood pressure medicine. I haven't been on any of that in probably 5 years now. And it just gives me peace of mind. I'm not anxious. I'm not crashing in the afternoons. I don't have all the food noise. Well, what am I going to eat later? And oh gosh, it's going to be 4 hours before I can eat again. And I would preemptively eat just so I wouldn't have a crash while I was busy doing something. And to me, that's all just craziness. It's absolute craziness. And eating meat has taken all of that away from me. So it really is simple. But like I said, it's not necessarily easy.
So, what does a day look like for you now? Are you just eating once a day? Are you eating 2 or 3 times?
It depends on the day. I very much listen to my body now. At the moment, I'm on a 3-day sardine fast with ketogenic woman, Anita, and some other people in her group. So right now, yesterday, today, and tomorrow look a little different than normal. But normally, I get up, I go for a walk, I come back, and around 10 or 11, I'll eat usually anywhere from 8 to 10 ounces of chuck roast or beef brisket or something like that, because I can cook those in a big amount and warm it up and eat on it for a week or two. My cooking has gotten a lot less for me. I do live with people that aren't carnivore, and I do 90% of their cooking, but even though they don't want to go full carnivore, I'm kind of slipping those carnivore meals in on them. I'll make, chicken tenders with pork panko and egg as breading and some Parmesan cheese in there. And I mean, they love it. So they're going to a more whole foods diet without it being carnivore yet, but they're even reaping a lot of the benefits of that without having to be as strict as me because they see how strict I am. And it kind of makes them go, gosh, I could never do that. But you'd be amazed at what you could do if it means your health. And me chasing health instead of just weight loss allowed the weight to come off of me pretty easily. Now, I was at a standstill all of last year. All of last year, I had already lost 25 pounds. And I don't have, right now, I probably would like to lose maybe 10 more pounds at the most. So it hasn't been a drastic weight loss. All last year, I stayed the same. All last year, I maintained. And all last year, I was carnivore. And my spots didn't budge. So that's why I made this decision. And what kind of told me that I did still have some inflammation from something I was eating on carnivore was the fact that the first month I was on lion diet, I lost 8 pounds. Well, I can't tell you the last month I lost 8 pounds without trying. I kept my calories the same. My protein to fat ratio was the same. So I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it was eggs. I don't know if it was chicken or pork. And I have no plans to add anything back in until my rash is gone. And at that point, I will probably add in one thing a month. I'll be very intentional with it. But for now, that one meal in the morning usually holds me. Sometimes I'll put a can of sardines with it too. But some days that holds me all day and I don't want anything else. And other days, around 2 or 3, I might have 4 or 5 more ounces of meat. And then I'm fine.
Wow. And I mean, you're making progress now, right? Which
Yeah.
is the awesome thing. Because often when there is a problem, whatever the health problem is, whether it's skin related or something else, and you can't get any headway with it, it's just so frustrating. And just to
I didn't
make
have
that
any
progress.
headway years and years and years. Nothing was helping. So
Yeah.
now, and that's, when my daughter asks me, I don't know how you do this, Mom. And I said, well, I'm starting to see results. And that has made all the difference because starting to see results gives me that hope I've been looking for and gives me a reason to stay so strict.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and so I also I think when you do a reintroduction of things, like doing something like one thing once a month in a very controlled way, that's probably a really good way of going about it because then you can actually see if you're having a reaction to something. It's like, oh, it was the eggs all along, or oh, it was the pork, or whatever, you know.
I'm going to be so disappointed if it's the eggs, but like I said, I will be very intentional about it because it's taken me so long to even see any movement in this rash at all that I'm not going to want to jeopardize that. And to me, food is not what it used to be. Food used to be entertainment. Food used to be comfort. Food used to be something to do when I was bored. Food is none of that to me anymore. Food is how I fuel my body. And if it's not helping my health goals, then it has no place in my diet. And I haven't always felt that way. I've always felt, especially when I was younger, didn't have a weight issue. Well, I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat. And that catches up with you. It definitely does.
Yeah, that's right. So since January, have you noticed, having just eaten basically steak or ruminant meat, since January, have you noticed any other changes? Like, is your sleep getting better, things like that?
My sleep is getting better. My skin is getting better, not just my rashes, but my skin overall. I don't have any anxiety like I used to have. Now, I don't know if those things are caused by what the chickens are fed or what the pigs are fed. You know, they don't have ruminant stomachs, so we tend to get some of that in our system too. I don't know any of that at this point. And for me, it might become important when I'm adding things back in, you know, to be careful about pasture raised this and organic that kind of thing. But right now, I'm just happy that the inflammation has calmed down. That's made me calm down. I don't feel like if I have a long day, I'm coming down with the flu. I don't get sick easily at all anymore. So it really has affected my stamina. You know, wanting to get up and take a walk, I do that 3 times a day. So that's what I was going to say about this way of eating is not just once or twice a day for me at mealtime. It's getting the morning light. It's getting the afternoon light, getting the evening light, moving my body, whether that means I'm using weights or I'm just on a long walk, clean hydration, water, clean electrolytes if I need them, which I do right now. I really do. If I try to back off the electrolytes, I start getting leg cramps. So I do still drink electrolytes once, maybe at the most twice a day. Sometimes I'll put some in some bone broth, and that'll be my drink in the morning. But other than that, I really feel great. I feel a lot better than I have felt in a very long time.
Nice. So you talked about your family, uh, you're kind of secretly making them more carnivore, but pretty much they're eating differently. But how about other people around you? Like, have any friends noticed that you're not eating the, I don't know, the waffles or the donuts or?
They don't really ask me. And I think when people see someone eating intentionally for their health and not just for pleasure, it does make them think a little bit. And maybe that's a good thing, but they're not always ready to talk about it. So I do just kind of do my thing. And if they ask me about it, we talk about it. Like my son asked me, you know, about it. He's like, gosh, that can't be good for you. And I said, well, what I can tell you is all my lab work looks great. I feel great. And my rash is starting to budge. But it sounds like such a foreign concept to a lot of people that something like meat could heal that way. Because for so long, we've had all of this pumped into our brains. You know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Have a big bowl of cereal and pour milk all over it, and then have some toast and some orange juice. And that's what I thought was healthy too for a long time. But now that, you know, they've kind of reversed the whole food pyramid, and I think it's becoming a little bit more mainstream, but there are still some diehard carb eaters. And I would never be the one to say everybody should be on carnivore or everybody should be on lion diet, because there may be people out there that food doesn't affect them this way. I don't know any of those people, but it's true. Maybe some people can eat meat and salads and be healthy on that, not be sensitive to any vegetables or that kind of thing. But for me, it has completely changed my quality of life. It's given me peace of mind. It's in the process of giving me my health back. I mean, I'm still on that journey. You know, the end of every month, I do take pictures of the backs of my legs and I compare them because honestly, I don't know that I could stay this strict if I wasn't seeing some type of improvement. That's really given me hope. It's really given me motivation. And it's when I'm looking at food so differently, it's really not that hard anymore. It was for a long time, but I feel like when you know your why, and your why isn't just, I want to lose 20 pounds or 100 pounds or 200 pounds or whatever that is, when your why becomes, hey, I'm getting older and there's a few things that I need to figure out and they will help my quality of life and they'll help me be around for my kids longer. And you really do see an improvement. You can't just ignore that. You can't, you know, brush it away as a coincidence or anything like that. I've been on this journey so long that it just feels natural now. It just feels like this is what it is. This is me trying to be my best self. And I happen to have an external symptom that shows me part of that journey. That's not the be all end all. Even when my rash is gone, I'll still keep up with blood work and all that type of thing. But it is a huge indicator that something in my body's not right.
It really is nice to be knowing you're moving in the right direction because you can see things are getting better. Um, yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. After such a long time and after trying so many different things, right?
And it's not a quick fix. I mean, I know that some people want to go on carnivore and they say, I'll try it for 30 days. Hopefully that 30 days hooks them. Because if they have issues that made them try it to begin with, depending on their health when they came to carnivore, it could take a lot longer than 30 days to see any results. And I would hate to see people give up, but I did it. I mean, I know I would never hold that against anybody for going in and out and in and out and in and out, because until you wrap your brain around it, there's not a reason for you to avoid the birthday cake at your best friend's party or avoid the pizza on Super Bowl Sunday or any of that. But when you really have a concrete why and you really do it long enough to see the improvements, it's hard to walk away from. It would be really hard to eat something I shouldn't eat and inflame myself again. That would be heartbreaking. I'm past that, thank good. Well, knock on wood, I should say.
It gets to that point where, at the start, you've got some cravings and, you can easily go back to the stuff. But then there's a point you get to where when maybe you feel like, oh, I could just eat that thing. But then you've got enough distance from it, I think, that your body kind of goes, yeah, hang on a second. Just think how you're gonna feel after you do it, you know? Think about the consequences. So it's like there's a period of time, and it's probably different for everybody, but there is a period of time, once you pass that, you've got enough distance to kinda make a conscious decision.
Absolutely. And the things, cooking for other people in the house. Now, if they bring home, a bag of candy on Valentine's Day, I do ask them to keep that in their room. I'm not going to be so arrogant to think that that could never tempt me. There are certain things that might tempt me, but I've learned to put some distance between me and those things because I'm in ketosis at least once a day because I check my blood every day. That, I mean, to me, that's goal, being in ketosis all the time now and to take a chance on knocking myself out of ketosis and it taking me a week to get back in, that doesn't sit well with me. So that's another reason why I don't have a bite of this or a bite of that, because I don't want to be out of that ketogenic state. That's where the gold is.
Yeah. So, based on the experience you've had, if a friend was interested in giving this a try, would you advise them to rip the Band-Aid off and jump in, or maybe go slowly and transition out the foods that, are not necessarily the best for you?
I would, it would depend on their health at the moment. If they were young and reasonably healthy, I would say track your food for at least a week. Don't make any changes. Just track your food and see where you're at. And if you track your food and you see you're eating 300 grams of carbs a day, then cut it back to 200 for a couple of weeks. And then cut it back to 100 for a couple of weeks. For me, that didn't erase the withdrawals, but I'm sure it made it easier. But if you've never tracked, you don't know where you are starting. And I think knowing that starting place is valuable information that can help you make that decision. Now, if you want to tough it out, if you're somebody that doesn't work long, hard hours every day and you would be okay feeling crummy for a week or two, or in my case, 2 months, then go for it. I wouldn't say I jumped in. It felt like I jumped in, but I did go keto first. I did go low carb keto, carnivore, and I still had 2 months of not feeling well. So that should tell you what kind of health situation I had going on inside. But for anyone else, that would be my first advice, would be track. You don't have to track forever, but just track and see where you are. And then if you want to jump in, jump in. If you're only eating 100 grams of carbs a day right now, sure, go keto and cut back to 20. But if you're at 3, 4, 500, you might want to take it a little slower. But some people do go all in, and they want to go all in, and they'll tough it out, and they'll drink electrolytes and do what they need to do. And that's okay too. But just know that you don't have to do it that way. You don't have to cut everything off today and clean out all your cabinets. Although, if you don't do that, it will be harder. I wasn't able to do that because I have other people here. But in the beginning, it was really hard to see all that. But now I look at it and it does nothing for me. Now, candy, I have to be careful of. But I still don't want to take it. I mean, I actually have some 85% dark chocolate that I bought when I was on keto, and it's still in my nightstand drawer. I have no desire for anything like that because I know it would knock me out of ketosis, and I work very hard to get into ketosis for the cognitive benefits as well. I'm looking at all body health, longevity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, nice. So, Catherine, if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you online?
The only place that I'm online is YouTube. And I'm Carnivore Grannie, and there are 2 Carnivore Grannies. So my Carnivore Grannie is spelled carnivore, of course, and then Grannie. But that's the only place I am. My email is on there as well, so they could reach out via email or a message on YouTube. And that's about it. No Instagram, no Facebook. I like to keep it.
Nice. So no worries. I'll link to your YouTube in the show notes.
Okay.
Catherine, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I love the work you do. It's getting this message out there to so many people with so many varied health issues. It's absolutely heartwarming. I love watching your channel.